I've spent years watching people enter retirement, and there's a pattern that surprises most. The ones with overflowing homes often feel poorer than those living with less. Not because of their bank accounts, but because wealth in retirement isn't just measured in dollars. I've noticed something over the years. Some retirees struggle despite comfortable savings, while others thrive on modest incomes. The difference? It's rarely about the numbers in their accounts. It's about how they live day to day. If you're approaching this stage of life and want to feel truly wealthy, not just financially, but in time, peace, and freedom, this channel is for you. I share these kinds of insights every week, and subscribing means you'll have a guide through these years without having to search for answers alone. I'm really glad you're here. Let's begin. Today you'll discover 7 reasons why less becomes more as life enters its richest phase. These aren't the usual tips about saving money. These are deeper truths about what creates real wealth in retirement, how empty space creates financial breathing room, why fewer belongings mean more security. Reason 1. Lower expenses mean real freedom. Here's what many don't realize until it happens. Every object owns a piece of your budget. Storage units cost money. Maintenance requires payment. Repairs drain accounts. Insurance premiums add up. Upgrades demand investment. The bigger the home, the higher the bills. Property taxes on larger spaces. Heating and cooling costs that never stop. Lawn care that needs constant attention. Cleaning supplies that run out. In retirement, when income often becomes fixed, these expenses quietly consume what should be freedom. But when possessions shrink, the monthly outflow does too. Suddenly there's room to breathe financially, room to choose, room to say yes to what truly matters. Consider the average American retiree. They're often house-rich but cash-poor, a 3,000-square-foot home filled with decades of belongings. The mortgage might be paid off, but the costs never stop. Property taxes in many states run thousands annually. Utilities for large spaces add hundreds monthly. Maintenance and repairs average 1 to 3% of home value each year. For a $300,000 home, that's $3,000 to $9,000 just keeping things functional. Add homeowners insurance, lawn care, pest control, and suddenly fixed income feels very fixed indeed. Now picture a different retirement. A smaller space, maybe 1,200 square feet. Intentionally minimal possessions. The financial shift is dramatic. Lower property taxes, reduced utility bills, less maintenance, minimal insurance, no storage unit fees. The money that once disappeared into home upkeep now sits available for experiences, available for family, available for healthcare without stress, available for spontaneous joys. This isn't about deprivation, it's about liberation. When monthly obligations shrink, fixed income suddenly feels abundant. There's margin in the budget, cushion for surprises, freedom to make choices based on desire, not necessity. A retired teacher on a modest pension can travel when expenses are low. A former office worker can help grandchildren when overhead is minimal. The same income goes further simply because less is required. The math is straightforward but powerful. Cut housing costs by 30% and a $40,000 annual budget feels like $50,000. Reduce maintenance expenses by half and there's breathing room for healthcare. Eliminate storage fees and subscription services tied to unused items, and suddenly there's money for what matters. This is the first layer of wealth in retirement. Financial freedom doesn't require more income. It requires less outflow, and that begins with less stuff demanding resources. When possessions decrease, financial pressure follows. The weight lifts, the stress fades. Money becomes a tool for living well, not a source of constant worry about maintaining what you own. Reason 2. You stop managing stuff and start living wealth in retirement isn't just financial, it's also about time. Consider this reality. Every item in a home requires decisions. Where to store it, when to clean it, whether to keep it, how to organize it, when to replace it. These small decisions accumulate into hours, days, and years of mental energy. The average American home contains 300,000 items. Each one demands attention at some point. Each one pulls focus from what could matter more. Think about a typical weekend in a cluttered home. Saturday morning starts with looking for something misplaced, an hour gone. Then there's the garage that needs organizing before anything else can happen. 3 hours disappeared. Sunday brings laundry that takes longer because closets are stuffed, drawers that stick because they're overfilled, cabinets that require excavation to find a single item. By Monday, the weekend is gone and nothing meaningful happened. Just maintenance, just managing, just stuff. Now imagine retirement with minimal possessions. Everything has a clear place. Nothing requires searching. Cleaning takes minutes, not hours. Organization happens naturally because there's simply less to organize. A retired couple I know downsized to 900 square feet with carefully chosen belongings. Their weekly cleaning routine? 45 minutes total. Their organizing needs? None. Everything visible, accessible, and simple. What do they do with the reclaimed time? They volunteer at a local food bank. They take long walks in nearby parks. They read together on the porch. They visit grandchildren without the stress of rushing back to handle home tasks. They live. Time is the most precious resource in retirement. Unlike working years when time was sold for income, retirement time is pure potential. It can be spent on anything, but only if it's not consumed by possessions. The hidden cost of clutter isn't just the space it takes, it's the life it steals. Every object managed is a moment not spent on purpose. Every hour organizing is an hour not spent connecting. Every weekend consumed by home maintenance is a weekend lost to meaning. Research shows that cognitive load from visual clutter reduces focus and increases fatigue. For retirees, this matters even more. Energy levels naturally shift with age. Why spend limited energy on stuff when it could fuel experiences? Why drain mental capacity on decisions about objects when it could be used for learning, creating, or loving? The wealth of time becomes obvious in simplified spaces. Mornings start with choice, not chores. Afternoons flow with intention, not interruption. Evenings close with satisfaction, not exhaustion from managing a home. This time, wealth compounds. A year of reclaimed weekends is 52 opportunities for joy. A decade of simplified living is 10 years of presence instead of maintenance. Some retirees realize this too late. They spend their healthiest retirement years managing belongings accumulated over decades. By the time they simplify, energy has faded. Mobility has decreased. The time wealth that could have been theirs was consumed by stuff. But those who simplify early discover something profound. When belongings are few, time expands. Days feel longer. Weeks feel richer. Years feel full of actual living. This is wealth that no investment account can provide. The dividend of hours returns simply by owning less. Reason 3. Less stress equals better health. There's a truth that becomes undeniable with age. Physical and mental health are the real wealth. Everything else is secondary. $1 million means nothing if you're too stressed to enjoy life or too unwell to use it. And here's what most people miss. Clutter creates invisible stress that directly impacts health. This isn't opinion, it's documented science. Cluttered environments raise cortisol levels, the stress hormone that damages the body over time. High cortisol increases blood pressure, disrupts sleep, weakens the immune system, and accelerates aging. For retirees, these effects compound when the body is already managing natural age-related changes. Walk into a cluttered home and notice what happens. The eyes scan constantly, unable to rest. The mind tracks unfinished tasks represented by every visible item. The nervous system stays slightly activated, never fully relaxing. This chronic low-level stress operates below conscious awareness but above physiological neutrality. The body knows. Blood pressure stays elevated. Sleep quality decreases. Inflammation markers rise. Mental clarity decreases. Over months and years, this stress accumulates into real health consequences. Now contrast this with simplified spaces. Clean surfaces allow the eyes to rest. Clear counters signal completion, not pending work. Minimal belongings mean fewer decisions, less maintenance, and reduced cognitive load. The nervous system can actually relax. In these environments, cortisol levels normalize. Blood pressure drops, sleep deepens, the immune system functions better, mental health improves. This isn't luxury, it's basic human need for nervous system regulation. Our bodies weren't designed to constantly process visual chaos and decision fatigue. They were designed to rest when safe. Simplified homes signal safety to the nervous system. Studies on older adults show clear patterns. Those living in cluttered environments report higher anxiety, more depression, and greater overall stress. They sleep fewer hours and wake more frequently. their reported life satisfaction is measurably lower. Meanwhile, those in simplified spaces sleep better, report less anxiety, and show better cognitive function on standard tests. The physical environment directly affects the internal experience of life. For retirees, this has serious implications. Healthcare costs rise with stress-related conditions. Heart disease, diabetes, and cognitive decline all link to chronic stress. Reducing environmental stressors isn't just pleasant, it's preventive medicine. Consider the practical reality. A 70-year-old managing a cluttered home faces daily physical demands, reaching into overstuffed closets, moving items to access other items, climbing to organize high shelves, bending to search low cabinets. Each action carries injury risk when balance and flexibility have naturally declined. Add the mental stress of never feeling organized, and the health cost multiplies. But a 70-year-old in a simplified home? Smooth mornings, easy access to everything needed, no physical strain from managing excess, no mental strain from visual chaos. The body can age more gracefully simply because the environment supports it instead of stressing it. This health wealth might be the most valuable of all. You can't buy back lost years to poor health. You can't restore vitality stolen by chronic stress. But you can create an environment that protects both. When stuff decreases, stress follows. When stress decreases, health improves. The connection is direct and powerful. A simplified home isn't just aesthetically pleasing. It's a health intervention. It's a daily choice to protect the body and mind from unnecessary strain. For retirees who want to thrive, not just survive, this matters more than any financial calculation. Health is wealth, and less stuff equals more health. Reason 4. Relationships deepen when stuff fades. One of the most unexpected shifts in simplified retirement is this. When possessions decrease, connections increase. Here's why this happens. Busy homes create busy lives. When there's always something to organize, maintain, or manage, time gets consumed. Energy gets drained. Attention gets divided. Relationships become secondary to home management. You intend to visit family, but the garage needs cleaning first. You want to host friends, but the guest room is full of storage. You'd love to travel with your partner, but leaving requires arranging the home. Stuff becomes a barrier to connection, often without anyone realizing it. But in simplified spaces, something beautiful emerges. There's finally room for what retirement is truly meant for. Meaningful time with loved ones. Long conversations over coffee that don't get interrupted by tasks. Shared meals without the stress of cluttered kitchens. Undistracted moments where presence is actually possible. Nothing competes for attention. The home supports connection instead of preventing it. Grandchildren can visit spontaneously because there's space and calm. Adult children can stay overnight without navigating storage boxes. Friends feel welcomed because the environment itself feels peaceful. Research on happiness consistently shows the same finding. Strong relationships are the greatest predictor of life satisfaction. Not money, not possessions, not status, relationships. Yet modern life makes connection harder than it should be. Cluttered homes create subtle barriers. The embarrassment of mess prevents invitations. The stress of maintenance leaves little energy for socializing. The time consumed by stuff management means less time for people. These barriers operate quietly but powerfully. Many retirees find themselves isolated not by choice but by circumstance. Their homes have become obstacles to the very connections they crave. Consider 2 retirement scenarios. In the first, a couple lives in a large home filled with decades of accumulation. They rarely have guests because preparing the house feels overwhelming. They don't travel often because managing the home before and after trips is stressful. Their adult children visit occasionally, but everyone feels tense navigating the clutter. The couple's time together is fragmented by constant home tasks. They exist in the same space but rarely connect deeply because there's always something demanding attention. This is common. This is what happens when stuff owns the space. In the second scenario, a couple downsized and simplified intentionally. Their home is small but welcoming. Grandchildren visit weekly because there's room to play and calm to enjoy. Friends come for dinner regularly because hosting is easy. The couple travels frequently because leaving and returning requires minimal preparation. Most importantly, they spend hours together actually connecting. Morning coffee without task lists, evening walks without worrying about undone chores. Weekend projects chosen for joy, not necessity. Their relationship deepens because nothing else demands their attention. This is wealth that compounds over years. Strong relationships buffer against loneliness, depression, and cognitive decline. They provide meaning and purpose. They create joy and support. These are the things people treasure most at the end of life. Never the stuff, always the people. Yet stuff often prevents the very connections it was supposedly supporting. The nice furniture that guests might damage so visiting feels stressful. The collected items that fill guest rooms so hosting is impossible. The maintenance demands that consume time that could go to relationships. When possessions decrease, priorities become clear. Time opens up, energy returns, space becomes available, and suddenly the life that was always desired becomes possible. Grandchildren remember the summers at your simple, peaceful home. Adult children remember the ease of visiting. Friends remember feeling truly welcomed. Your partner remembers the years of actual presence together. This is the wealth that matters. This is what enriched retirement really means. Not a full house, but a full heart. Not managed spaces, but meaningful connections. Reason 5. Fewer belongings mean easier transitions. Life changes in retirement. This is unavoidable. Sometimes there's a move to a smaller home because maintaining the current one becomes too difficult. Sometimes health requires adjustments like adding accessibility features or relocating closer to medical care. Sometimes, and this is rarely discussed openly, there's the need for assisted living or other care arrangements. Each transition becomes exponentially harder when a lifetime of belongings must be dealt with. This is a source of enormous stress for many retirees and their families. The average American who has lived in one home for 20 or 30 years has accumulated accordingly. Closets packed with clothes from multiple decades, garages filled with tools and equipment, attics holding memorabilia and forgotten purchases, basements storing furniture and mystery boxes. When the time comes to move, whether by choice or necessity, the work is overwhelming. Sort through everything, decide what to keep, determine what to sell or donate, arrange removal of large items, clean out every corner. It takes months, sometimes years. Many retirees put off necessary moves because facing the belongings feels impossible. Their health declines in homes that no longer serve them simply because the stuff is too much to handle. This delay has real consequences. Stairs become dangerous, but the move is too daunting. Isolation increases because the home is too large to maintain but too full to leave. Medical care suffers because the location isn't optimal, but relocation feels overwhelming. The stuff that was supposed to provide security now creates entrapment. And if decisions are delayed until crisis happens, family members inherit the burden. Adult children spend months sorting through their parents' possessions, often while grieving, always while stressed. The things that were never released become an unwanted inheritance of labor and difficult decisions. But when possessions are already minimal, life stays flexible. Imagine a retiree in a simplified home. They live with intention, keeping only what actively serves current life. Their belongings fit comfortably in their space with room to breathe. If health changes require a move, the process is manageable. A few weeks to sort remaining items, easy decisions because everything present is already wanted, simple logistics because volume is reasonable. The move happens smoothly, the new space is arranged quickly, life continues with minimal disruption. This is freedom. This is what allows people to age in place as long as possible, then transition gracefully when needed. The flexibility extends beyond physical moves. Financial circumstances can shift in retirement, markets fluctuate, pensions adjust, healthcare costs rise unexpectedly. When lifestyle is already simplified with lower fixed costs and minimal dependencies, these changes absorb more easily. There's breathing room in the budget because overhead is low. There's adaptability because needs are minimal. A retiree living simply can weather economic changes that would devastate someone maintaining expensive possessions and large spaces. This is a quiet form of wealth that operates as insurance, the freedom to adapt without friction, the ability to make changes based on current needs, not past accumulation. It protects both independence and relationships. Independence is maintained longer because obstacles to necessary changes are removed. Relationships are protected because burden isn't transferred to family. Some of the most thoughtful retirees I've known simplified intentionally as a gift to their children. They didn't want to leave behind months of sorting and decisions. They wanted to leave memories, not work. There's profound peace in knowing your life is portable if needed, that you can move toward better health, better care, or better circumstances without being anchored by possessions, that your children won't face overwhelming tasks during difficult times, that you remain nimble in a phase of life when flexibility matters most. This preparation isn't pessimistic, it's wise, it's loving. It's a form of wealth that many only recognize when facing transitions unprepared. Those who simplified early navigate life's changes with grace. Those who delayed often navigate them with crisis. Reason 6. Simplicity is a safety net. Here's a truth that surprises most people. The more minimal your lifestyle, the less vulnerable you are to financial disruption. This seems counterintuitive. Conventional wisdom says more possessions equal more security. A larger home is an investment. Collections have value. Stuff represents safety, but retirement reveals a different reality. Possessions create financial vulnerability more often than protection. Consider common retirement financial disruptions, market downturns that affect investment income, cost of living increases that outpace fixed income adjustments, unexpected healthcare expenses that insurance doesn't fully cover, home repairs that can't be delayed. Each disruption tests financial stability. For someone maintaining a large home full of possessions, these tests often result in stress or crisis. Their fixed costs are high. Their financial obligations are rigid. Their margin is thin. When disruption comes, there's little room to adapt. They might need to liquidate investments at bad times, take on debt, reduce healthcare spending, make painful choices. Now consider the same disruptions for someone living simply. Their fixed costs are already low. Their financial obligations are minimal. Their overhead is flexible. When unexpected expenses arise, there's room in the budget to absorb them. Market downturns are concerning but not catastrophic because withdrawal rates are modest. Cost of living increases are manageable because the baseline is already efficient. Healthcare costs fit within available resources because other spending is controlled. The simplified lifestyle creates financial cushion that operates like a safety net. It catches you when circumstances shift. The numbers tell the story clearly. Imagine two retirees, each with $400,000 in retirement savings and $36,000 annually from Social Security. The first maintains a large home with high property taxes, substantial utilities, constant maintenance needs, and possessions requiring insurance and upkeep. Their annual fixed costs run $42,000. They withdraw $6,000 from savings yearly, depleting their nest egg in 67 years at 4% returns. But one major disruption, maybe a medical crisis or market downturn requiring larger withdrawals, and their timeline compresses dramatically. Financial anxiety is constant because margin is minimal. The second retiree simplified deliberately. Smaller home with lower taxes and utilities, minimal possessions requiring little maintenance or insurance. Annual fixed costs run $28,000. Social Security covers most living expenses. They withdraw minimally from savings, letting it grow. After 20 years, their nest egg has increased despite withdrawals because spending stayed below income. They have financial breathing room. When disruptions occur, they adjust easily. Their safety net is their lifestyle itself. Low overhead creates high security. This isn't about frugality for its own sake. It's about strategic resilience, the ability to withstand economic storms that are increasingly common. Healthcare costs rising faster than inflation, housing markets fluctuating, investment returns varying, government benefit adjustments lagging. These are realities for American retirees. Having a simplified lifestyle with low fixed costs is protective armor against uncertainty. It means retirement remains stable even when external circumstances shift unpredictably. There's another layer to this safety net. Simplified living reduces dependency on systems that might fail. Less reliance on expensive repairs means less vulnerability to contractor availability or costs. Lower utility usage means less exposure to energy price spikes. Minimal possessions mean less need for storage, insurance, or replacement. Each reduction in dependency is an increase in stability. The person living simply controls more of their security through choices rather than hoping circumstances remain favorable. Perhaps most valuable is the mental peace this creates. Financial stress degrades quality of life for many retirees. The constant worry about running out of money, the anxiety over market performance, the fear of unexpected costs. This stress affects health, relationships, and happiness. But simplified living removes much of this weight. When overhead is low, financial stability is robust. When needs are minimal, resources feel abundant. The same income that causes stress in a complex lifestyle creates peace in a simple one. This psychological security might be the greatest wealth of all. The freedom to sleep well knowing that your life can't be disrupted by economic changes beyond your control. That's power. That's safety. That's wealth. Reason 7. Less stuff means more legacy. At this stage of life, there's a question worth considering deeply. What will be left behind? Most people don't think about this until it's too late to make meaningful changes. They assume their belongings will be treasured by family, that their collections will be appreciated, that their full homes represent a generous inheritance. But the reality is often quite different. For many families, inheriting a house full of belongings becomes a burden, not a blessing. And understanding this truth transforms how we live our remaining years. Statistics paint a clear picture. The vast majority of possessions people believe have value are worthless to the next generation. Furniture styles change. Collections lose meaning without the collector's passion. Keepsakes that held personal significance mean nothing to those who don't share the memories. Adult children often face months of sorting through their parents' homes, trying to determine what to keep, what to sell, what to donate, and what to dispose of. It's emotionally exhausting during an already difficult time. Many describe it as one of the hardest parts of losing a parent. Not the grief of loss, but the overwhelming practical burden of stuff. I've heard countless stories from adult children dealing with this. They feel guilty discarding items their parents saved. They feel stressed by the sheer volume requiring decisions. They feel frustrated that months are consumed by this task when they'd rather be remembering and healing. Some siblings fight over belongings, damaging relationships. Others spend thousands on estate sales that generate hundreds in return. The stuff that was supposed to represent love and legacy becomes a source of stress and conflict. This is the opposite of what anyone wants. But when life is already simplified, the legacy becomes clear and meaningful. Not stuff to manage, but memories to treasure, stories to share, values demonstrated through how life was lived, time that was spent together instead of managing belongings. This is what families actually want from their parents. Not collections, not furniture, not decades of accumulated objects. They want the experience of you while you're here. They want your presence, your wisdom, your time. And after you're gone, they want to remember you without the weight of physical burden. The most thoughtful retirees I've known have simplified intentionally as a gift to their children. One couple spent their late 60s carefully downsizing, keeping only what brought current joy. They gave heirlooms to family members while alive, sharing stories with each gift. They donated collections to museums or organizations that would value them. By their mid-70s, they lived in a small, accessible home with minimal belongings. When the father passed unexpectedly, his wife and children grieved deeply. But the practical matters took one weekend instead of months. The family focused on supporting each other and celebrating his life. No fights over stuff, no guilt over discarding things, just clean closure and genuine mourning. That was his final gift. Simplicity that allowed proper goodbye. This is the deepest form of wealth in retirement, living in a way that honors both yourself and those you love, free from excess, full of intention. When possessions are few, what remains is what matters. Relationships, experiences, character, impact. These form a legacy that enriches rather than burdens. Your children remember how you lived, not what you owned. They inherit your values, not your storage problems. They carry forward your wisdom, not your unfinished sorting projects. There's something profoundly loving about releasing possessions before you're gone. It says you considered those who will come after. You cared enough to not leave mess behind. You valued their time and emotional energy more than keeping objects. This consideration is itself a form of legacy. It models thoughtfulness and responsibility. It demonstrates that people matter more than things. These lessons outlast any physical inheritance. The final insight here changes how every space feels. A home isn't just for you. It's a reflection of how you value others. When simplified, it shows respect for those who will eventually handle your affairs. It demonstrates care for those who might need to move you if health changes. It reveals priorities that focus on people and presence rather than accumulation. This transforms a home from a storage unit into a statement of values. And those values, that intentionality, that consideration for others, this is what enriches a legacy and makes retirement truly wealthy. Which of these 7 reasons resonates most with you right now? Maybe it's the freedom of lower expenses finally making sense. Maybe it's the gift of time that could be reclaimed. Perhaps it's the peace that comes from knowing your life is flexible if circumstances change. Or possibly it's realizing that what you leave behind matters as much as what you keep. Whatever it is, there's no rush to change everything at once. Simply noticing where richness could exist is the first step. Awareness often precedes action naturally. Some people realize they're spending thousands annually maintaining possessions they don't actually use. Others recognize they're too exhausted to enjoy retirement because their home demands constant attention. Still others see clearly that they're delaying necessary transitions because stuff feels overwhelming. If this perspective brought clarity or comfort, share your thoughts in the comments. What surprised you most? Which reason hit home? What small change might you consider? Others walking this path will find strength in your words. Retirement is meant to be rich in what matters. Sometimes that means releasing what doesn't. The conversation continues below. Retirement is meant to be the richest phase of life, not because of what's accumulated, but because of what's finally released. True wealth at this stage isn't about having more, it's about needing less. And in that space, everything important grows, freedom expands, time multiplies, health strengthens, relationships deepen, security solidifies, legacy clarifies. If this video shifted something inside or helped you see retirement differently, consider subscribing to Simple Years. Every week, gentle wisdom like this is shared. Insights about living well in these important years, practical ideas for creating calm instead of chaos, thoughtful perspectives on what actually matters. Subscribing means you don't have to navigate these years alone searching for answers. Calm, clarity, and direction will simply arrive in your feed week after week. You'll build a library of wisdom for this life stage. Then